Hello, my name is Cheyenne and welcome back to another nail art tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how I created this Mad Max inspired nail art. I was specifically inspired by this poster here with the blue sky, the orange desert, but when I went into the theater, that wasn't the right poster. But anyways, here's how I got started. I first tried to swatch out different color combinations to see what I liked best, and then sketched out some line work that was inspired by Furiosa's prosthetic arm. I'm going to be using Great Lakes lacquers. You want pigeon milk in that. I ended up using this color for most of my nails base. It's I want to say gray polish that has an orange shimmer sitting in it, which kind of reminded me of the orange of the desert, but also the cool sky. This polish is pretty opaque in one coat, but I just did 2 coats for safe measures. This color is just too pretty. On my pointer finger on my right hand and my middle finger for my left hand, I used Morning Tides from Cert Colors. This is a blue jelly. I had to use 2 to 3 coats, I think, between the nails because it was a little patchy in some spots, and that might have been on me. I love this shade of blue. It's a perfect Cinderella blue. And lastly, to wrap up the base colors that I'm doing, I'm going to be using Cirque's Space Cowboy. And I love this polish, and I'm sad that I don't use it more often. It just isn't sunny here enough for me to warrant breaking out my holographic polishes sometimes. This is a beige holographic, leaning a little bit more on the gold side, and I swear there's also gold glitter in here that kind of stands out. It's pretty full coverage, I would say, on the first coat, maybe a little bit patchy, but just for good measure, putting on a second coat. Now I am going to be putting on a quick dry top coat. I maybe put this down a little bit too soon. You could see there's a little bit of dragging of the polish, but ultimately ended up looking fine. I'm doing this for a few reasons. The first being that I want to create a very straight line. So I'm going to be applying tape to my nail to help achieve that, and I need a hard base before doing that. And then the second reason being that I was hungry, so I had to go get some burritos. But here's some video in the car driving to get burritos of what these polishes look like before I put any nail art over them. So after I had my burrito, I went in and I started applying tape to my nail, with this first piece being vertical down the middle of my nail. And putting the polish on this nail is super easy, just following the straight line along the nail. Try not to add too much polish because I don't want to flood the edges of where the tape meets the edge of the nail, because then there might be some leakage. I'm applying Space Cowboy right now. It's important to pull off the tape as soon as possible, because if the polish starts to dry, when you then go in to pull off the tape, it could then crack the polish and peel some up with it. Next, I'm grabbing Cirque Colors Alchemy. This is a beautiful honey colored magnetic. I love it so much. I got to be one of their swatches for it, and I'm super grateful for that opportunity. Same thing as before, I applied some tape to my nail. This time I'm doing it horizontally, and because I can't just easily drag a brush along the edge of the tape, I'm just going in with a detail brush to just lightly put some polish on the edge of the line where the tape is. I would only recommend applying one piece of tape at a time versus putting tape on all of your fingers all at once, because the tape, in my experience, tends to peel up a little bit at the edges if you let it sit for too long. And I'm just using normal Scotch tape, nothing too fancy. You could buy nail polish tape. Since this polish is a little bit on the sheerer side, I am just magnetizing it on the first coat, and then I'll be doing a second coat and magnetizing that again for another minute. I honestly wish I had gone with maybe a more orange leaning polish. This one's a little bit gold leaning, but my idea here was that the bottom part was desert sand while the upper part was the desert sky. I have to admit, I'm not a huge Mad Max fan, so don't come after me. I don't know why Furiosa has black makeup on the upper half of her head, but I also did some of my nails with black on the top and a sandy color on the bottom. I was mainly excited to watch this movie because I kind of like Ann Taylor-Joy. She kind of plays the same type of character each time, but I still enjoy watching her. So next I have Mirror Mirror. This is a shimmery silver polish, and I thought this would be a good representation of the chrome elements that you can see throughout the franchise or the film itself. And I tried to take some inspiration from the shape of Furiosa's arm piece. I thought it was really pretty how it twists and turns up her arm. By the way, I thought I'd show this. This is how I get polish onto my brush. I just try to wipe some polish on directly from the bottle. I don't like making beads of polish on some sort of palette because I feel like it might be a little bit wasteful. I'm not sure which is more wasteful, but I feel like this works for me at least. Let me know, how do you grab fresh polish for nail art? Do you like to use a palette or do you just like to go directly into the bottle? I'm very curious to know. Again, I kind of regret the choice of using Mirror in this case. I had a little bit of a hard time controlling it, and I've used this before for nail art, so I'm not quite sure why I was struggling today. I think it might have been that I wasn't using my thinner brush, so I did have to go in and make my lines a little bit thicker, but I think overall, across all the nails, you can't really tell the difference. I can create a straight line like this fairly quickly, but creating the curve for the J shape, I did have to take a little bit slowly, and I just used the tip of the brush to create the curve, while I used the length of the brush to create straight lines. This nail was also inspired by her prosthetic. I mean, a lot of these nails are going to be, but I really thought it was beautiful how the metal twisted up around her elbow area, so I'm going to be creating this S-like shape to emulate that. And there is also a supporting piece of metal along the edge, so I'm going to be adding another like half circle along the side of that as well. Personally, I find doing S shapes to be a little bit challenging sometimes, especially with longer brushes like this, so I think it's easier to start at the middle part of the S and make that horizontal line and then work on the ends. As I mentioned before, I'm using Mirror to do this line work. Though I was wondering if anyone has any suggestions for doing silver nail art. Do you have any nail polish that you like to lean towards? The first that came to my mind was Hollow Taco's World's First, which is a silver chrome polish, but I've heard mixed things about it, but maybe it would work well for nail art? I don't know, let me know in the comments below. This nail is going to be loosely inspired by Furiosa's gun. I'm just kind of taking a generic gun shape, but just simplifying it. There's usually a longer barrel on top with a shorter one on bottom. I don't know if they're all called barrels. Clearly I am not a gun enthusiast. Anyways, so the second barrel, I'm just going to call it a barrel, is going to be a little bit shorter, and then I'm also going to create a half circle to kind of emulate the finger hole or the trigger hole, whatever you call it. When trying to simplify a design, I always think, what are the main elements that represent this object? And this is what I came up with. Onwards, I'm going to be taking inspiration now from Furiosa's shoulder blade that supports her prosthetic. And I had a hard time trying to figure out how to dumb down this shape again because it's just a solid piece of metal. So I thought maybe I'd just keep it simple and just do the outline of what that shape looks like, and also include maybe a line loosely alluding to the attachment to it. Again, this is all very loosely inspired, but this was my thought process behind it. I started this by creating a narrow S, which is much easier to do than a wide S in my opinion. And then I'm creating another arch to kind of help round out the shape a little bit. On my last finger, the design ended up looking kind of similar, but I was taking inspiration then from her elbow where the metal kind of bends a little bit. So I'm creating a Y-like shape here. And I am taking into account the background, like is it gonna look weird for the additional lines to overlap at certain points in the black versus the beige, and I thought it would look nicest if it didn't necessarily go into the beige, so that way it popped against the black more. I'm creating a curved line from the center bottom part of my nail and making it a little bit offset at the top. And I'll be adding a secondary line coming from the top left side of my nail, connecting to the first line right where the black meets the beige part of the background. I thought about adding other stylistic elements, like trying to do some imitation chain, because they have a lot of chains that they end up wearing for like belts and other accessories, but I decided to keep things simple and just do some line art inspired by her arm. Lastly, I'm going in and just applying KB Shimmer's Quick Dry Top Coat to just lock everything down and help the manicure dry quicker. But anyways, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this tutorial, if you like this design, or if you're planning to go see Furiosa. Out of all the Mad Max movies, it is right now my favorite one. But thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!